I decided to teach because I really want to make a difference in children's lives.
I know a lot of adults will say kids never know when they're ready.
Learners don't want our opinion.
I don't think a lot of learners take the subject seriously.
I was taught that sex gives you AIDS.
I knew that sex was a bad thing to do.
We grew up knowing it is taboo to talk about it.
We were a bit shy to hold each other's hand or to kiss each other.
A teacher needs to remember that this child needs support.
Welcome to the final episode of this groundbreaking series, Breaking the Silence. I am Dineo Ranaga. Now, we have over a period of 12 weeks unpacked issues affecting the delivery of comprehensive sexuality education in our classrooms. Our aim was to help our youth build a foundation as they mature into sexually healthy adults. Today, we take a look back at this journey that evoked a wide range of emotions amongst educators, learners, parents, and viewers across the country. Our panel of experts today are Dr. Tlaleng Mofokeng, Ms. Nomveliso Mbanga, Mr. Mbuyiselo Buerta, Ms. Viwe Mjonji, Dr. Finn Reagan, Dr. Sadna Pandey Subrayan. In studio today, I am joined by our experts, Dr. Mbuyiselo, Sis Nomveliso, Dr. Tlaleng. We've had a beautiful season. We've had 12 episodes of engagement, discussions with our youth, our educators. And I think we can all say that we've learned a thing or two, and you've imparted some wisdom here, there, and the other on our guests that we've had in the past 12 episodes. Let's do a roundup of the conversations that we've had. Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about
Lying, banging, shagging. Get laid. Bang and smash.
Shag, deflower, the deed,
Babs.
and sex.
I don't know, I think it's funny to talk about.
We never talk about sex at our school.
Teachers, they don't go in depth about what the consequences actually are.
They expect your mother or father at home are talking about it, but they don't.
Trust me, the one way that we learned how to use a condom was through the packet.
Now, learners understand sex and sexuality to be the same thing, but what is the difference?
Well, sex usually refers to the actual act of having sex. So whether it's the different types of oral sex, whether it's penetration with a penis or a vagina, or vagina-vagina sex, or a penis-to-penis sex. And sexuality refers to or encompasses a bigger range of things.
When you think about sexuality, it's kind of the expression of human life. It is about how people express themselves in relationships, how they make choices. It is about sexual orientation. It also encompasses values. It is not the role of educators to teach learners sexual intercourse. And sometimes people, when you talk about sexuality education, they think that you are teaching learners or their children about sex, and yet sex is just a small part of sexuality.
When educating our learners, why is it that we focus more on sexuality rather than just sex?
It's not enough to just say to young people, say no to sex, and yet they actually have desire to continue a relationship. And how do they then deal with that situation where they're not ready for a certain type of sexual activity, yet they want the relationship to carry on, as an example. So empowering them to make informed decisions in future, even without adults, even without teachers, because you then actually give them information that enables them to think for themselves.
Every child is going to confront their sexuality at some point in their lifetime. So every one of us needs some type of information or guidance as to how to approach sex and sexuality.
Dr. Tlaleng, what are some of the common myths surrounding sex and sexuality?
One of the things is that young women are having anal sex with the belief that they're preserving their vaginal virginity. But one of the biggest myths is then that they don't get STIs. Right? And unfortunately, with the type of sexual activity, in fact, your chances of getting HIV are much higher. Some people still think there's a look for certain diseases, right? And if I'm still fat or looking nice, it means I'm not sick.
You're healthy.
Which means people won't go for testing and they won't get treatment early. And one of the myths, of course, that especially around HIV and TV, people think if you have HIV, you will then automatically have TB, or people who have been diagnosed with TB
will
it means
automatically have HIV.
which is not the same, you know. HIV does attack your immune system and it does make you susceptible, you know, to other infections, but it doesn't mean that just because of HIV, automatically you have other diseases like TB.
I want us to come and zoom in on HIV. Our HIV statistics in South Africa are alarmingly high. Not just our HIV statistics, but also our teen pregnancy statistics. Are we missing something? Where is there a shortage in the switch?
I think as a country, we are in denial. We refuse to acknowledge that young people are sexually active.
With teen pregnancy, for the longest time, we've been focusing on teaching girls how to not become pregnant, and we seldom speak to boys in terms of their responsibility in the whole entire thing. Often it's men who are impregnating the girls to say, be responsible enough to not target younger girls who are still in high school and give them the chance to also live out their lives fully. So often when teen pregnancy happens, it's not the girl's fault only, it's often because they've been preyed on by either mature or older men who then make them fall pregnant. So I think we still need to create a bigger conversation where we involved boys and involve men in society, uncles, and also people in the neighborhood as well.
Often we say, you know, kids shouldn't be on contraceptives, why are you even thinking about sex? Yet when they do fall pregnant, we're judging them again for falling pregnant. So it's almost like we're disempowering them, right? So why it's important to actually then change the sort of power dynamics to only just say girls are the ones responsible for contraceptives. How are boys growing up already thinking about contraception and how that is also part of their responsibility?
Now, learners are tired of constantly hearing only about the consequences and the repercussions of sex. How can we teach sexuality positively and also entertainingly?
Without being moral about it, without being judgmental about it, without stigmatizing it about it, so that then the children are able to know that we trust them, we love them, we care for them.
If you think about comprehensive sexuality education, it says teach abstinence and teach safe sex. What we're finding is because we take our personal experiences or our cultural and religious beliefs that say that sex is a sin or that we shouldn't be talking to children about sex, and we replace the curriculum. And that is problematic.
And there's a natural inquisitiveness, right, with young people that we all had when we were young, where you're even discovering your own body. Okay, so there's things like menstruation as well. So even how you talk about that topic can often set the tone for how young women relate to their own bodies and their very normal physiological, you know, experiences. So it's very important to be aware of the tone and language that we use when we do talk about sex.
The more people preach abstinence, that's the more people want to do it.
Sex is very important in a relationship.
When you're not in a relationship, you call it vibing. They don't call it vibing, they call it sex buddies.
Most people, you know, they f*** buddies.
Dating without the title.
Yeah.
Because people are scared of the title nowadays. Being the boyfriend or the girlfriend.
We had young people talking about sex buddies and
vibing.
You know, vibing. This is some form of risky sexual behavior, is it not?
Yes, it
How
is.
do we curb this?
Sometimes teenagers listen to adults speak about sex. They hear the words like your sex buddies and your
friends with benefits
and everything else. So the kids interpret those things in their own way without understanding the full context of things. So the way that we can curb this is by us at home and also as people in the community to talk openly about our own experiences. And also teens do have relationship issues as well. So often because of the dramas involved, they look for an easier way out. I guess because they've not grown emotionally to handle everything else. So the sex buddies are a quick way of having fun without being attached to anyone.
Ladies, what is risky behavior?
Look, when you're talking about the act of having sex, we have to talk about anal sex and the risks that are there. Because sex itself is not inherently risky, right? It's everything else around it in the context of HIV and other STIs that we then have to quantify our risks to being infected.
So everything else is the drugs, the alcohol, and everything else that kids use as a way of recreation. So often when teens are a bit drunk and can't control their decisions, then it's become risky behavior, because that's when they can easily get raped and they can't tell if they gave consent or not. So that becomes risky behavior in a way.
In my community, in my street, for instance, I usually see like these young boys, they would touch these young girls, their friends, inappropriately, and they would be almost rewarded for it.
I don't feel okay wearing just anything, like even taking public transport sometimes. Like it's a daunting thing.
So we don't know if today's our last day, are we gonna get raped? Enough is enough. We have to break the silence. Enough of young people or girls who have been raped out there.
Dr. Tlaling, how can learners be supported should they become victims of abuse as well as harassment?
I think it's important for schools to, link up or integrate or collaborate interdepartmentally, because I don't think on their own schools or the Department of Education can ever win this battle of sexual assaults. But we do know a lot of it does happen on school grounds, and I think it's important.
We've seen viral videos.
Yeah,
right?
So I think it's important for schools to maybe to establish a relationship with a station commander or a captain of one of the police stations maybe nearest to the school, where the teachers or principals or other learners can pick up the phone and report crime or whatever it is that they see. But I do really think it's a strong collaborative effort. It won't be just a Department of Education, solution.
Of course. I think the burning question also then is our statistics, and Mbisela, I'm sure you can agree with this one, that they show that majority of women, young or old, regardless of age, are an endangered species at the hand of majority men. How do we then better socialize our young men?
Yeah, but I think it's important to teach our young men that women's bodies are not just objects, that it is important to respect. It is important to actually even love and care. But more importantly, that boys should think differently about women's bodies and their own bodies. Issues such as self-respect for boys, because that then translate into them respecting girls and women. And the emphasis, women's bodies are not objects of misuse, of being violated.
I do think that older men in the society need to start modeling behavior for younger boys, because I've noted that a lot of boys learn behavior not from home but from other men around the society. Because remember, we're sitting with an issue where we have absent fathers in different homes. So what boys do is they look for the next man to look up to, even if the man knows about it or not. So I think there needs to be a conscious effort from men in society to model a particular behavior that's going to teach the next generations to do differently. And yes, we do need to talk more to boys about how they can share their emotions, and that if a girl rejects your advances, that you be able to take it and not think that it's an attack on your manhood.
Our parents never talks to us about sex and all those kind of things. In their point of view, like, they are not gays. They're living their life. There's no gays, there's no lesbian, there's no transgender. If you maybe come out as gay or a lesbian or transgender, like, they would insult you and call you names or even chase away. You're not my son. I didn't give birth to a morphe.
My teacher would say to me, "You're Kayla, I didn't expect that from you because you're such a nice girl." And all of a sudden, you just being like a lesbian. God didn't create you like that. You're a girl.
When our educators are in a classroom teaching sexual diversity, what do they need to be cognizant of, and what do they need to consider?
I think the most important thing is language. Teachers need to have the actual language of how do you break down certain concepts. What do teachers say about transgender, for example, and they are teaching in isiZulu or Sesotho.
Much of the work at the moment in terms of our education system, in terms of schooling, is in English. Stabane, matula, kuchu, and other terms are used commonly to refer to issues of sexual and gender diversity. That these terms are sometimes derogatory. Constitutionally, South Africa is a world leader when it comes to focusing on the importance of diversity. And we're beginning to understand more deeply homophobia, which is the exclusion of people on the basis of their sexuality. And so when it comes to the classroom, having an understanding, developing our critical diversity literacy, both in educators and learners, is important.
So we need to develop the language that can fully really, enable teachers to break down these concepts for young people, but also teachers themselves may need to be educated.
We need to teach teachers about what to teach and how to deliver the content. Again, the department is responding by developing scripted lesson plans that provide the content and the structure of lessons on sexuality education.
Yeah, but also, you need a certain level of consciousness so that as you teach these things and you're an educator, be always conscious and be alive to your own prejudices.
It therefore becomes important that we self-reflect and think about the ways in which our languages, our traditions, our cultures, our beliefs determine how we approach schooling and education.
They become an impediment. You're not able to, in fact, reach out to them because already there is this wall, and that's why then the certain level of consciousness, it means that I must always be conscious that I should never be prescriptive.
So remove yourself
which may not be
from
easy.
the role of educator.
And also some educators assume the role of I'm the parent.
Yes.
And they are the kids. And I think also that sets the tone for the engagement,
Can curriculum alone adequately address stigma as well as discrimination against people who identify as LGBTQI?
No, you need churches, you need all religious bodies, you need also society in general, so that all of us, are in it together. Because then you need to change the mindset, you need traditional leaders, you need everybody in our society.
This is an area that some people find uncomfortable to talk about, to teach about, or to learn about. All young people have the right to participate, to access and to participate to the best of their abilities in education.
Personally, I feel like sex in the Black community, I'll state why normally I use Black community is like a huge thing. That big elephant in the room. It feels like even in LO class, when you get to that topic, when it's like sex, you feel that for most teachers, let us just skip it and let us just get it over and done with.
Teachers don't use the exact same words. They use cookie and exactly.
Our voices are not heard. Basically, the teachers think that we are just learners. We should follow their rules. So actually, our voices don't matter. Culture or no culture, we still fall pregnant, we still catch diseases. So it's much better for them to just tell us the way it is, never minding the culture.
Language, culture, religion, as well as tradition. Now, these have a significant role in how educators deliver the lessons, but also how learners receive the lessons. How can educators get over and around this?
Well, it is for me or for educators to always, as I said earlier, to be conscious of their own inhibitions, the language.
I think the language is critically important. There's nothing crude or unsexy or inappropriate if you refer to a vagina as a vagina and a penis as a penis. Sexuality has its own body or language, just like mathematics has its own language and nomenclature. We feel free to talk about the terms in science, in mathematics. Why not in sexuality?
But also to go to the level of where the learners are, so that there is this congruency in the message, that you begin to find one another, so that you don't speak over them, or you don't speak to them as if they are a tabula rasa, clean page. So it's important that you make sure that you walk with them, you journey with them, and they see that you support them, you care for them, and you love them.
Educators and parents, how can they work together to support the sexual development of our learners?
A lot of teens don't talk to sex with their parents because they fear being told that they are probably assumed to be having sex as well. And also a lot of parents often say they run away from the topic itself. So if a kid gets involved in something, even if maybe they were raped at school, they can't talk to parents because a parent will say, what were you doing there? And
so we still judge.
We still judge the kids. So we almost need to soften how we communicate things with kids so that they trust us first when things go wrong within their own cycles.
Because if we don't create that conducive environment, that my daughter and my son would feel sufficiently confident in that I can share with him, with her, they would go outside, and possibilities are they will be misinformed.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
In South Africa, a 12-year-old can go for family planning.
At the time, we feel uncomfortable asking questions like, what is contraception?
It's easy to talk to someone who's not a member of a family.
Probably she was to go to a clinic and say, can I have contraceptives? What will the people say? That's the problem. That's the first problem we have.
Many of the nurses know our parents. Maybe if I get in a clinic and ask for contraceptives, maybe one nurse knows me and my mom. She's gonna act up and go tell my mom what kind of child I am, and even add more things that I don't even do.
Now, Dr. Tlaleng, what are the available packages of sexual reproductive health services for learners?
Contraceptives is a big one. So a lot of the clinics, primary health clinics, will have access to contraceptives that young people can get. For example, condoms, male condoms and female condoms, dental dams, finger cots to use for oral sex. And there's also the issue of counseling and relationship assistance, where some clinics do have counselors, and some nurses and doctors are able to assist young people with some navigation around their relationships and definitely around sexuality. And of course, we have to talk about, when young people then have infections, they have treatment options that they can then be put on.
In 2012, we began to offer general health services in schools to all learners. In 2017, the department took the bold decision to make available condoms and a package of sexual and reproductive health services available to learners on the school premises. And this is because of the stubborn challenge of HIV and teen pregnancy rates.
So we've had quite a journey with both our learners and our educators. I'd like us to take a moment to reflect on what our most meaningful experiences have been and what we take away from this entire conversation.
The first thing for me was being in the green room and watching the learners interact with you. And I think, their ability to be so open and share and really allow us into their very personal spaces, I think that was really quite moving, and I don't think they realize how them doing that is so impactful for other young people.
I think for me, what I've learned or what I've seen the most was the differences between the younger people and the older generation in terms of how they interact with the topic of sex. And in the different episodes, we had older educators coming through and some were younger. And I noticed how uncomfortable the older educators have been around the topic itself and how free the teens are in terms of engaging with the topic, which I think should be a lesson that parents take at home, that teens are open to conversation, but it matters how the older generations tackle the topics with them.
For me, it's issues of gays, lesbians, intersex. These are things that South Africans have not sufficiently dealt with. And in all of these episodes has given South Africa an opportunity, especially young people, to openly talk about this without any inhibitions. And I think that as a country, we have a lot of work to still do, but this is an amazing start.
I must say that my one thing that totally blew me away is that when you look at what is said about the youth in the press, in the media, the situation looks really dire. But the youth we had conversations with, I was blown away by how emotionally mature and advanced most of them are. So they're not lost.
I think we should start valuing life orientation as a subject. It must be up there like the other examinable subjects. As adults, when you think about it, we use more of the life orientation than we are thinking about Pythagoras on a day-to-day basis.
The richness of South Africa lies in its diversity. It is important to know our content, the material of our subject, knowing about the language in the area.
And we need a consistency of message across all sectors of society. Whether a child goes to a clinic, whether they are having a discussion with a parent, or a teacher is delivering the curriculum. And that's absolutely important. Right now, we're giving children mixed messages because of our own judgments and biases, and we need to begin to close that gap.
Thank you for taking time out of your schedules to sit with us and educate us, because in listening to you, myself and the country, we've learned so much. Thank you very much. Thank you. South Africa, we have successfully broken the silence. We have taken a solid step in the right direction and started the conversation around comprehensive sexuality education. Learners, educators, parents, and society, let's all be responsible for continuing this crucial conversation. I'm Dineo Ranaga, and thank you for joining us.